A certain beauty comes from death, the absence of what once sculpts what is. These remnants do not glorify catastrophe. They honor it by letting the emptiness tell its truth. The beauty of abandonment when emptiness tells the story. In the world of Hollow Night, this silence is embodied perfectly in Hollow Nest. Nestled deep beneath the earth, Hollow Nest was once a flourishing home for the Mantis Lords, proud warriors and guardians of their realm. But now it lies abandoned and fractured, its grand halls overrun by dust and decay. Every broken pillar, every cracked floor tile, whispers of battles fought, of lives lost, and of a civilization that slowly unraveled. Walking through Hollow Nest is like stepping into a living memory, one where absence is more than just emptiness. It is a presence that shapes the atmosphere, the feeling, and the story waiting to be uncovered. Before descending into the depths of Hollow Nest or wandering the rain-soaked streets of the City of Tears, the journey begins in Dirtmouth, a quiet, unassuming village perched on a cliff's edge. Dirtmouth is a place of humble stillness, where the hum of distant underground echoes is barely audible, and the world above feels paused in a fragile calm. It is neither grand nor desolate, but a threshold, a gateway between the surface and the mysteries below. Though small and seemingly insignificant, Dirtmouth holds a subtle melancholy, a silent witness to the passage of countless wanderers who come and go, each carrying their own stories of hope, loss, and the unknown. Hollow Nest is a masterclass in environmental storytelling. The architecture is a blend of sharp, angular forms and intricate insect-like motifs, reflecting the disciplined and hierarchical society of the Mantis tribe. The layout is symmetrical yet claustrophobic, with narrow corridors leading into expansive chambers. A design that conveys both control and confinement. The sense of abandonment here is palpable. Scattered remnants of armor, broken weapons, and ancient banners hang limply in the stagnant air, hinting at a once vibrant culture now frozen in time. Yet, unlike many deserted places in games that feel lifeless, Hollow Nest pulses with an undercurrent of latent energy. The echoes of the Mantis Lord's presence still resonate in the chambers, manifesting in challenging boss encounters that test the player's resolve, a final testament to their enduring legacy. But beyond its role as a battleground, Hollow Nest represents a deeper theme of decay and change. The Mantis Lord's isolation and eventual withdrawal from their realm mirror the broader cycles of rise and fall found throughout Hollow Knight's world. Their home, once a symbol of strength and unity, becomes a hollow shell, reminding us that even the mightiest empires are not immune to entropy. In this way, Hollow Nest is not just a backdrop or a setting. It is a narrative device, a silent storyteller that reveals the tragedy of a forgotten society through architecture, atmosphere, and challenge. The emptiness here is charged with meaning. It forces the player to confront the weight of absence and to imagine the lives that once filled these empty halls. From the silent echoes of Hollownest, the journey leads us upward to a place drenched in sorrow and grandeur, the City of Tears. Unlike the quiet desolation of the Mantis domain, this city pulses with an endless rainfall, a sky perpetually weeping over stone streets and towering spires. The City of Tears is a stark contrast. It is alive in its melancholy, a monument to grief that refuses to be forgotten. Here, the rain is more than weather. It is a living shroud that blankets the city in a veil of sadness and stagnation. The relentless downpour muffles footsteps and conversations, creating an atmosphere thick with isolation and despair. Unlike Hollownest's abandoned halls, the City of Tears still holds flickers of life. Flickering lanterns, distant echoes of voices, and the ceaseless drip of water from every crumbling ledge. Architecturally, the city is vast and imposing, with Gothic influences seen in its pointed arches and intricate stonework. It speaks of a civilization that once prized order, faith, and ceremony. Yet beneath this veneer of grandeur lies a fractured society burdened by its own history, a city caught between decay and persistence. The City of Tears does not tell a story of outright extinction, but of endurance through sorrow, where beauty and tragedy intertwine beneath the weight of the rain. In exploring the City of Tears, players walk through an emotional landscape where every drop of rain seems to carry the weight of loss, memory, and unresolved fate. The city's haunting ambience invites reflection, not just on what has been lost, but on how places and people continue to exist, even when soaked in grief. If Dirtmouth is a place of stillness, Hollownest a relic of order, and the City of Tears a monument to sorrow, then Deepnest is something else entirely. It is not merely abandoned, it is feral. It is not a city, it is a wound. A cavernous expanse where the rules of civilization have broken down and something older, darker, and more primal has taken root. Deepnest is a descent into chaos, both literally and thematically. The moment you enter, everything changes. The architecture, so carefully crafted in previous regions, is replaced by organic, unsettling terrain. Twisting tunnels, walls that breathe, and the distant skittering sound of legs just out of sight. Everything here is designed to disorient, to unnerve. This isn't a place built by hands or shaped by culture. It's a place that grew, that sprawled, that consumed. Where other regions in Hollow Knight rely on atmospheric melancholy, Deepnest employs dread. It weaponizes confusion as a storytelling tool. The map becomes unreliable. Pathways loop in on themselves. Darkness envelopes everything. Enemies blend into the walls, waiting silently to pounce. Even the background pulses with life, as if the entire environment is watching. In Deepnest, you are not exploring a forgotten kingdom. You are trespassing. This hostility is not incidental. It's baked into Deepnest's narrative identity. Long before the fall of Hollownest, Deepnest resisted the Pale King's rule. While much of the kingdom was unified under the Dream Nail and the king's vision of order and purity, Deepnest stood apart, both geographically and ideologically. The denizens here, like the Weavers and the terrifying Garpedes, operated on instincts older than the Pale King's kingdom. Their refusal to be assimilated is etched into the very ground. Deepnest didn't fall into ruin. It never submitted to structure to begin with. The monsters that inhabit Deepnest aren't tragic echoes of fallen citizens. They are predators. They are alive, and that makes them uniquely terrifying. The mimics, enemies that pretend to be corpses or even mimic you, are not just jump scares. They're thematic intrusions, reminders that identity, trust, and pattern have no place here. Deepness challenges the player's learned behaviors. It punishes comfort, mocks predictability. Where other areas reward observation, Deepnest punishes familiarity. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Deepnest is how it forces us to confront our fear of the unknown. Unlike the mournful ruins of Hollownest or the historical sorrow of the City of Tears, Deepnest doesn't present a tragedy we can understand. There are no obvious answers here, no ancient manuscripts or statues to interpret. It is not a story to be read. It is a place to be survived. It is the raw, unknowable chaos that exists outside the bounds of narrative. And in that, Deepnest is perhaps the purest form of a dead city. Not because its people are gone, but because it never sought to be a city in the first place. Even the visuals echo this defiance. Deepnest is a tangle of roots, bones, and tunnels. Its palette is sickly, muted greens, dirty browns, broken by the occasional glowing egg sac or twitching shape in the distance. There is no symmetry, no elegance. It's the visual language of entropy, of rot, that resists being cleaned. And yet, even here, there is a strange kind of beauty. Not in the aesthetic sense, but in the thematic completeness. Deepnest is whole in its horror. It never breaks character. It is a nightmare that follows its own internal logic with terrifying consistency. And in a game about cycles, decay, and memory, Deepnest serves as the subconscious, the buried trauma, the thing the kingdom tried to suppress and forget, but which still pulses in the dark beneath it all. Hallownest isn't remembered for what it was, but for what remains of it. It is not a story of glory lost, but of silence inherited, of statues half submerged, songs half remembered, and systems half functioning, long after they've lost their meaning. It is a kingdom sustained only by echoes, its deepest truths buried under layers of denial and decay. But in that decay, something remarkable happens. Meaning begins to emerge not from what is still active, but from what is missing. It is the empty thrones, the sealed doors, the forgotten names that give Hallownest its shape, what once sculpts what is. Absence becomes architecture, memory becomes the map. That's the beauty of Abandonment. It tells stories no living narrator could. Stories that linger in the dust, in the dark, in the way light bends around an empty chair. Hallownest is dead, but in that death it has become pure narrative. A place where the past presses in from every angle, where every ruin whispers, "You are too late, but you can still listen." And so, we descend again into another dead city, from ancient insects to crumbling stone, from myth to machine. This next world offers a different kind of silence, one filled not with dreams, but with data, cables, and long-abandoned protocol. Let's step into the next story carved by absence. Angel's Egg, 1985, directed by Mamoru Oshii and visually crafted by Yoshitaka Amano, is less a traditional narrative and more an enigmatic meditation on faith, memory, and loss. The film unfolds in a vast, desolate cityscape, a drowned world of crumbling Gothic architecture, twisted iron, and endless shadows. Its environment feels like a cathedral abandoned to time, where silence and stillness have become the only inhabitants. Angel's Egg is a film that communicates through absence as much as presence. Its near-complete silence, almost no dialogue at all, mirrors the essence of dead worlds themselves, places where the voices of the past have faded, leaving only whispers in the wind, echoes in empty halls, and stories etched in stone and shadow. This silence isn't emptiness, it is a language. It is a reminder that abandoned spaces don't need words to tell their stories. Instead, they speak through the weight of silence, the texture of decay, and the lingering presence of what once was. In this way, Angel's Egg embodies the very nature of a dead world, a place whose history and meaning are conveyed not through conversation, but through quiet, haunting symbolism. Unlike typical stories that drive forward with dialogue or action, Angel's Egg speaks through symbolism and mood. Its sparse dialogue is almost whispered, fragmented, and mysterious, leaving the viewer adrift alongside the young girl who carries an egg, a fragile emblem of hope or belief, through a realm that may itself be a dream or a dying memory. The dead city in Angel's Egg is not just empty. It is a graveyard of forgotten gods and vanished belief. The structures loom like tombstones, decaying under the weight of their own history. Water often laps at foundations, suggesting a world slowly being reclaimed by nature and time. The atmosphere is thick with melancholy, where every corner hides a mystery or a threat, yet nothing ever truly disturbs the silence. Water plays a persistent role, pooling, dripping, lapping gently at the feet of buildings, like time itself slowly reclaiming the world. It acts almost as a preservative and a solvent, holding memories in suspension while also eroding them. As the girl and the mysterious man wander the city, their reflections in the water suggest something ghost-like about their presence, as though they too might be echoes of a past long gone. This cityscape functions as a visual metaphor for spiritual desolation, a world where faith has died or been abandoned, leaving only the remnants of rituals, statues, and cryptic symbols. And yet, in the midst of this decay, the girl's egg, small, luminous, and always cradled protectively, introduces a stark, fragile contrast. It becomes a vessel for potential, life, rebirth, meaning. It is ambiguous whether she knows what it contains, or if she even believes in it herself, but her devotion to it mirrors religious faith. She treats the egg like a relic, moving through this desolate world with the kind of reverence others once reserved for their gods. But Angel's Egg refuses to offer clarity or comfort. The egg might be salvation, or it might be a delusion, the final defense against the total collapse of meaning. In this way, the egg is not simply a narrative object, but a cipher, a mirror to the viewer's own interpretation of hope in the face of despair. It may be the only remnant of belief in a world that no longer has any use for it, or it may be the last cruel illusion in a universe that has already moved on. This paradox, the tension between the sacred and the empty, between hope and hopelessness, is what gives the film its haunting power. The city is dead, yes, but death in Angel's Egg is not final. It is a state of questioning, of suspended animation, where meaning has been lost, but not entirely forgotten. Angel's Egg is deeply rooted in the tension between innocence and decay. The girl's journey through this shadowed city feels like a search for meaning in a world where meaning itself has fractured. She is both a child and a guardian of a fading dream, carrying something precious that might represent belief, life, or simply memory. The film's dreamlike logic and ambiguity reflect how childhood memories can be fragmented and surreal, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrifying, and often impossible to fully grasp or explain. The absence of clear narrative forces the viewer to engage on a purely emotional and symbolic level, experiencing abandonment not only as a place, but as a state of being. A mysterious boy, silent and inscrutable, accompanies the girl. He is a figure of paradox, protector or threat, believer or skeptic. His presence introduces questions about companionship in isolation and the elusive nature of truth. He often questions the girl's faith, but never shatters it outright, underscoring the fragile tension between hope and despair. This relationship evokes the human struggle with belief itself, the constant interplay of doubt, fear, and the desire for meaning, especially in worlds that seem empty or lost. Yoshitaka Amano's art style gives the city an ethereal quality, a blend of Gothic grandeur, decay, and fantasy. The visuals are painterly and surreal, turning ruins into abstract sculptures that seem to breathe with silent histories. The sound design is minimalist but evocative. Dripping water, distant thunder, faint echoes, creating a soundscape that feels as empty and vast as the city itself. Music, when it appears, is haunting and sparse, reinforcing the film's meditative pace. At its core, Angel's Egg is about how dead worlds are not just physical places, but spiritual states. It teaches us that abandonment carries layers. There's the obvious absence, but beneath it lies the fragile residue of hope, memory, and the human need to believe in something beyond decay. This city is dead, but it is also pregnant with meaning. Silent, yes, but speaking volumes to those willing to listen closely. The film's refusal to explain itself directly mirrors the unknowability of loss and the beauty found in unanswered question. From the silent ruins of Angel's Egg, where faith and memory have crumbled into shadow, we turn inward, into the dark, fragile corners of the human mind itself. The Cat Lady invites us to explore a different kind of dead world, one not defined by empty cities or abandoned cathedrals, but by the haunting landscape of trauma, despair, and the battle for one woman's soul. Here, the decay is internal, the emptiness psychological, yet no less profound. It is a place where the ghosts are memories, and survival depends on confronting the darkest parts of oneself. The Cat Lady, 2012, developed by Harvester Games and written by Remigiusz Michalski, is a psychological horror experience that delves deeply into themes of depression, trauma, and redemption. Unlike the sprawling external decay of Hollow Knight or the haunting spiritual desolation of Angel's Egg, The Cat Lady presents a dead world of a different nature, one that exists inside the fractured mind of its protagonist, and, by extension, within anyone who has faced the darkest valleys of human despair. The setting is a grim, muted urban landscape. Dark streets, cramped apartments, and shadow-filled corridors that feel simultaneously familiar and unsettling. The city itself is not so much a physical place as a reflection of Susan Ashworth's shattered psyche. It's a world where loneliness is tangible, where every street corner and shadow hides pain and the weight of loss. This world is dead in a profoundly intimate way. The people Susan encounters are ghosts of trauma, manifestations of her mental state, or victims of their own invisible battles. The city is littered with signs of decay, peeling wallpaper, broken windows, graffiti scrawled in desperation. It's a physical embodiment of depression, oppressive, claustrophobic, and suffused with an almost unbearable sense of hopelessness. At the heart of The Cat Lady is Susan's struggle with suicidal ideation and her journey through despair. Unlike traditional horror games that externalize fear through monsters or supernatural entities, this game's horror is psychological and deeply human. The monsters are often the manifestations of Susan's inner demons: guilt, self-loathing, grief, and the interactions with these entities force the player to confront the rawness of mental illness. The narrative doesn't shy away from the brutal reality of depression. It presents suffering in an unfiltered way, but it also carves out space for healing and resilience. Susan's journey is painful and fraught with setbacks, but it is also a testament to the possibility of connection, self-forgiveness, and the fragile hope that can emerge even in the darkest places. Just as Angel's Egg uses architecture and silence to communicate, The Cat Lady employs its environment and characters to symbolize Susan's emotional state. The recurring imagery of cats, creatures often associated with independence, mystery, and survival, mirrors Susan's complex relationship with herself and her past. Her interactions with other characters, who themselves bear scars of trauma, create a tapestry of shared suffering and tentative understanding. The game's art style, with its stark contrasts and muted colors, reinforces the bleakness of the world, but also highlights moments of humanity and warmth, however fleeting. Sound design is equally important. The oppressive silence, punctuated by sudden noises, distorted voices, and unsettling music, evokes Susan's fragmented mental state and heightens emotional tension. The Cat Lady is also a meditation on death and rebirth. Susan's literal and metaphorical confrontations with death force her to re-evaluate her will to live. The dead city she inhabits is not just a place of endings, but also a potential beginning. A liminal space where pain can be acknowledged, faced, and transformed. This game reminds us that dead worlds aren't always external landscapes, but can be the internal wastelands of the mind, where hope must be fought for daily. Its narrative refuses to romanticize suffering, instead treating it with brutal honesty and compassion, showing that survival is an act of courage. The power of The Cat Lady lies in its authenticity and its refusal to reduce mental illness to metaphor alone. It portrays a dead world that is deeply personal yet universally relatable. It challenges players not just to witness a story of abandonment and despair, but to feel it, to grapple with the uncomfortable truths of human fragility. In closing, the Cat Lady completes the journey you've taken through Dead Worlds, from the silent ruins of Hollow Knight's hollowness, through the spiritual desolation of Angel's Egg, to the internal wasteland of the human psyche. It emphasizes that abandonment and decay are not only places we find around us, but also places we sometimes carry within. In The Cat Lady, we confront the most intimate kind of abandonment, the one that lives inside us. This dead world, unlike the crumbled cities and silent ruins we have seen before, is a landscape shaped by pain, loss, and the fragile struggle to find light in darkness. It reminds us that decay is not just physical, but emotional and psychological, that sometimes the most desolate places are the ones within our own minds. Yet, through this exploration of despair, there is a quiet, stubborn resilience, the echo of what once was, and the faint pulse of what might yet be. This is the essence of Dead Worlds. They tell stories without narrators, histories written not with words, but with absence, silence, and the scars left behind. They sculpt what is by the weight of what has been lost. As we close this journey through silence, ruin, and the shadows of the soul, we remember that in emptiness there is a story, a haunting, beautiful testimony to survival, memory, and the enduring complexity of being. A certain beauty comes from death, the absence of what once sculpts what is. This quiet shaping of presence by absence is the story that Dead Worlds tell us. Whether through the forgotten grandeur of Hollow Knight's hollowness, the silent faith and shadows of Angel's Egg, or the fragile mindscape of the Cat Lady, we learn that emptiness is never truly empty. It is a space filled with memory, loss, and the haunting echoes of life that once was. These worlds, though silent and still, speak profoundly. They remind us that every end carries within it the seed of meaning, and every emptiness holds a story waiting to be heard. And in listening closely, we begin to understand the delicate beauty born from decay, a beauty that challenges us to see beyond absence, to find the story that lingers in the quiet. Thank you for joining me on this journey through worlds shaped by absence and memory. If you found meaning in these stories of decay and resilience, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. What dead world has stayed with you the most? I'd love to hear your reflections. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the story unseen.